Hi, I'm Lara. The night before my sister's wedding, my mom texted me, "Don't come. Monica and her in-laws don't want you there." And then Monica sent a heart emoji, a heart, and wrote, "Goodbye, loser." I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just replied, "Perfect." They laughed in the family group chat like nothing happened, while I sat there realizing the people I loved most had turned me into a ghost, and they didn't even notice. But by morning, everything had changed. And my sister? She wasn't laughing anymore. She was screaming. Before we dive in, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Drop it in the comments. I want to know who's listening. The tea had long gone cold. I didn't even realize I was still holding the mug until my wrist started aching. The steam had faded an hour ago, maybe more. I sat at the kitchen table, alone, surrounded by shadows that the dim ceiling light couldn't quite chase away. It was the kind of Ohio Friday night where the leaves outside rattled like old bones in the wind, and the silence inside the house pressed heavy on your chest. I had been scrolling through old family photos again. It wasn't something I planned. I just opened the folder, and suddenly I was there, watching little moments flash by. Monica in her prom dress, Mom laughing in the backyard, Dad holding our golden retriever, Rosie, back when things still made sense. I paused on one of the photos, Thanksgiving 2015. My hand was on Monica's shoulder, both of us smiling, but only one of us meant it. That's when my phone buzzed. It startled me, too loud in the stillness. I turned it over, expecting some junk notification. But no, it was the family group chat. I hadn't opened it all week. Not since the engagement photos went viral in the thread, and no one even thought to ask if I was coming. I tapped it open, just one line from Mom. "Don't come to your sister's wedding. She and her in-laws don't want you there." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no emotion. Another ping. Monica, of course. "Goodbye, loser." I stared at the screen, just sat there, no blinking, no tears. I felt like a mannequin with my skin wrapped too tight. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart numb, not racing. No clever comeback, no desperate plea, just one word. Perfect. I hit send, not out of pettiness, not even sarcasm. It was the only word I had left, the only thing that kept the tears from falling. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of knowing they still had power over me. The chat kept going, laughing emojis, a meme about drama queens. Monica posted a gif of someone dramatically crying into a pillow, tagging it. Lara, probably. Evelyn, my own mother, responded with LMAO. I watched them toss jokes like darts across the screen, none of them landing on their target, because I wasn't even in the room anymore. I was a ghost. The family had moved on without me, and I was just a specter they mocked when bored. I scrolled back. Threads from birthdays, holidays, weddings I wasn't really invited to, just expected to show up at, stay quiet, smile politely. Years of being the serious one, the sensitive one, the one who can't take a joke. No one ever asked how I paid for that last-minute catering bill when Mom's card declined, or why I skipped college for a year after Dad's heart surgery. They called me the responsible one, then turned responsibility into a weapon the moment it inconvenienced them. "They never wanted a sister," I whispered to no one. "They wanted a scapegoat." My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, but there was no one to scream at. So I just sat there, and that's when I remembered the business money. 2 years ago, Monica had begged me for a loan, $25,000, to start a boutique she claimed would empower local women. I believed her. I always believed her. She said she had investors lined up, that she just needed a bridge loan, said I'd have it back in 6 months. I gave her everything I had in savings. The boutique never opened. She told Mom and Dad I pressured her into taking the money, said I guilt-tripped her into a business she wasn't ready for. And just like that, I was the villain. Again. I never asked for it back, never brought it up, but I kept every receipt. The venue Monica chose for the wedding? I recognized it, because my money paid the deposit. My fingers trembled, not from rage, from clarity. I got up, walked to the drawer in the hallway, and pulled out the old phone, the one I hadn't used in years. I charged it earlier this week, out of instinct. Opened the voicemail app and found it. Dad's message. Left just a few days before he passed. His voice was calm, low, tired but wise. Don't ever let them tell you your silence is weakness. I played it again. His voice filled the kitchen, quiet but strong. Something in me cracked. Not sadness, not bitterness. Just release. I placed the phone back down on the table. Turned off the notifications, slid the family chat into a folder marked Nope. Then I whispered, not to anyone, just into the space that used to be filled with love. If they want a show, they'll get one. I laid in bed, longer than I meant to, staring at the ceiling, watching the soft stripes of dawn crawl through the blinds. The light was sharp and cold, the kind that made everything feel a little too clear. I hadn't slept. Maybe I dozed off once or twice, but my mind never let go. The house was quiet, still wrapped in that eerie calm of early morning. I threw on my robe and padded barefoot into the kitchen. My old coffee maker sputtered to life like it hated being awake as much as I did. I let it drip while I leaned on the counter, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the closet door in the hallway. Behind that door hung the soft blue dress. I bought it 3 months ago after Monica sent the save the date, back when I still believed I'd be standing beside her, not erased. Coffee in hand, I turned on the news, needing some kind of background noise that wasn't my thoughts. The local station was covering weekend events, fall fairs, farmers markets, and then, today, local entrepreneur Monica Venn will marry Ryan Harland at the Willowbrook Estate, an exclusive venue known for its lakeside views and... I turned the volume down before the anchor finished the sentence. My stomach twisted like something curdled inside me. My money, their fairy tale. I said it out loud to no one, just to hear something honest in the room. My phone was still silent. No new messages, no calls, not a single text from my mother or sister, not even a passive-aggressive emoji. Nothing. The kind of silence that felt rehearsed. I took a long sip of coffee. Bitter, cold, just like the day. A few hours later, I found myself driving, not really thinking where to go. My hands took me toward Mom's house out of habit. Same street I learned to ride my bike on. Same uneven sidewalk I tripped over every Halloween. I slowed down, coasting past the old maple tree we used to climb. It was all so painfully familiar, until I looked through the front window. Guests were already arriving, all dressed in pastel, heels clacking on the walkway, holding little gift bags and casseroles. Then I saw it. Inside, on the mantel above the fireplace, our family portrait, but not our portrait. This one had been edited. I was gone. They had cropped me out. My face, my body, like I never existed. I pulled to the curb and parked. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands were clenched so tight around the steering wheel, the leather dug into my palms. "You really did it, didn't you, Mom?" I whispered. "Laura?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. I turned and saw Mrs. Keene, our neighbor for as long as I could remember, standing on the sidewalk, clutching her little black handbag like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "You're not going in?" she asked gently. I forced a smile. "Wasn't invited." Her eyes softened. "Honey," she said, stepping closer to the car window, "sometimes not being invited saves your soul." I nodded, not sure what to say. She patted the hood of my car, gave me a sad smile, and walked across the street, heading toward the noise and fake laughter inside. I drove off before anyone else could see me. No direction, just away. Away from that house, away from the face they erased, away from everything I used to believe about blood and loyalty. Eventually, I ended up near Willow Lake. It wasn't intentional. The car just rolled to a stop there. Monica and I used to come here all the time when we were kids. We'd feed the ducks with stale bread and fight over who got the last slice of apple pie Mom packed. I sat on a bench by the water. The autumn wind was picking up, pushing little ripples across the surface. My reflections stared back at me, fragmented, distorted. "We used to feed ducks here," I said aloud. "She'd always throw crumbs. I'd count them. She said I made everything serious. Maybe I did, but maybe that's why she always got away with everything." A jogger passed behind me. I pulled my coat tighter. The past was so close today, like it was breathing down my neck. Back at home, the sun was starting to dip behind the trees. The air had that late-day stillness, like everything was waiting for something to happen. I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. My inbox was empty, but my drafts folder wasn't. There it was, wedding gift financial breakdown. I had written it months ago, an email with attachments, every document, every Venmo receipt, every transaction showing how I'd fronted the capital for Monica's failed business. The business that never existed, but somehow paid for her wedding. It was cold, clinical, precise. I hovered over the send button, finger trembling slightly. It would ruin everything, or maybe it would just make things honest. I heard my father's voice again, like a whisper from the past. "Don't prove them wrong. Just live so loud they can't ignore the truth." I exhaled slowly. "Not yet," I said aloud. "Not this way." I closed the laptop. Evening crept in, long shadows stretching across the carpet. The dress still hung untouched in the closet. I walked past it on the way to the window, where I could just barely hear the distant thump of music from Willowbrook. Laughter floated in like fog, thin, cold, uninvited. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just closed my eyes and said quietly, "Let them dance. The music always stops." I didn't move from the window for a long time. The music from Willowbrook still drifted across the air like perfume that lingered too long, sweet but nauseating. I watched the lights flicker against the trees in the distance. Somewhere out there, my mother and sister were dancing, smiling, clinking champagne glasses under fairy lights I unknowingly paid for. I finally turned away and walked back to the kitchen to rinse out my coffee mug. My hands felt oddly steady, like I'd already cried all I could cry. I was halfway through brushing crumbs off the counter when my laptop pinged. Not loudly, just a soft, casual sound, like it was nothing. But something in me knew. I walked over and looked. Subject, "You should see this." It was from Alex. I hadn't heard from him in years. Not since he worked briefly for Monica, before she claimed she was pivoting industries. He and I weren't close anymore, but we used to share everything. So for him to send me something tonight, of all nights, I clicked. Inside was a single PDF attachment. The title froze me before I even opened it. Financial Proposal, Willowbrook Wedding Sponsorship. I opened it. My stomach sank. I read the first few lines, then again, slower. My name wasn't mentioned once. Monica had written the proposal herself, pitching the wedding as a brand showcase for her fast-growing startup, and asking vendors to contribute in exchange for exposure. She claimed full ownership of the funding, even listing her own fake business valuation. I scrolled further. There, in tiny print, under Additional Contributions, was a line that stopped my breath. Initial capital gifted by family support, non-reimbursable. I knew those numbers. It was my money. Every cent she borrowed, and she called it a gift. I stared at it so long, my eyes started to blur. But then I saw the footer, an e-signature, my mother's. Evelyn Venn, family guarantor. She'd signed off on it. She knew. She approved it. She let them use me as a piggy bank and pretend I didn't exist. It hit me like ice down my spine. I wasn't just left out of the wedding, I was scrubbed out of the truth. I sank down onto the floor, laptop still open in my lap. My breath came in short bursts, like my lungs had forgotten how to work. An old voicemail popped into my mind. My mother's voice, warm and syrupy. Family first, Lara, always. I used to believe that. Now all I could hear was how hollow it sounded, how rehearsed. I whispered to no one, I wasn't family, I was funding. Another ping. A new message from Alex. I'm sorry, Lara. I didn't know they'd use your name this way, but the truth's all there. You just need to decide how loud you want to be. I looked up from the screen. My reflection was faint on the black part of the monitor. Puffy eyes, hair pulled back, jaw set tighter than I'd ever seen it. I didn't look broken. I looked ready. Maybe silence wasn't grace. Maybe silence had always been permission. I copied the entire folder to an external drive and tucked it into my nightstand, right under an old birthday card Monica gave me in college. The irony of it made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. Meanwhile, across town, they toasted. I imagined the lights twinkling under the tent, Monica laughing as guests told her how radiant she looked, how lucky she was. I imagined Evelyn nodding, holding her wine glass just right for the photographer, never letting the camera catch her bad side. The camera clicked. A perfect picture, mother and daughter. A family moment, clean and curated. They'd erased me so well, it looked like I'd never existed. But someone had already posted the photo on social media. I stared at it on my phone, heart pounding slow and heavy. I hit save. They wanted a fairy tale? I'd give them the real version, the one with receipts. I opened a new draft in my inbox. Subject? To the ones who erased me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't type. Not yet. I needed more than rage. I needed precision. I didn't send the email. Instead, I shut the laptop, folded the blanket tighter around me, and sat still while the apartment settled into silence. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the old wall clock, the distant sound of tires on wet pavement. It all felt louder than my thoughts. My fingers hovered above my lap, stiff from holding too much in for too long. By morning, my phone was flooded with more photos, more videos, hashtags. Monica and Ryan smiling beneath strings of fairy lights. Evelyn in her champagne dress, beaming, clinking glasses. Even the venue got tagged. Willowbrook magic. The comments poured in like confetti. Stunning! Fairy tale wedding. So proud of you, Monica. My thumb froze over one image. It was Monica, standing still as Evelyn kissed her forehead. The caption read, "My proudest moment." I stared at it longer than I should have, until I noticed the comment beneath. "Where's your other daughter?" And Evelyn's reply came quickly, so casually it almost didn't sting. "Oh, she couldn't make it. Work trip." I let out a bitter laugh. Work trip? Sure. That lie came too easily to her. She'd been preparing that answer her whole life. I got up and poured myself some coffee, letting the hot mug ground me. But the images wouldn't stop spinning. Every post felt like another version of the same truth. I didn't exist to them. Not really. Not since he died. I got in the car, didn't bother brushing my hair. The wind took care of that as I drove through the back roads toward the cemetery. The ground was still damp from last night's rain, leaves scattered like forgotten words. I knelt at my father's grave, brushing off a few twigs before placing my hand flat on the cold stone. Just feeling it grounded me in a way nothing else had lately. "You warned me," I whispered. And I let them write you out too. I could still hear him. His voice had weight, not volume. He never raised it, but when he spoke, you felt it in your chest. Suddenly, I was back there, 5 years earlier. The beeping of machines filled the hospital room. The lighting was harsh, but he looked peaceful. Tired, yes, but still himself. He'd turned his head slowly, met my eyes, and smiled like he knew something I didn't. "You've always been the quiet one," he said. "But that's where your strength is, Lara. Don't let them mistake it for weakness." Before I could respond, Monica walked in. Her perfume arrived a second before she did, sweet but sharp, the kind that stays long after someone's left the room. She smiled, leaned in to kiss his cheek, and looked over at me as if I were just passing through. "Dad," she said softly, "when you're gone, I'll take care of Mom. Lara's too busy anyway." She smiled, but her words carried weight, and not the comforting kind. I looked over at him, waiting. He looked from her to me, his eyes suddenly cloudy. He took my hand and held it tightly. "Promise me you'll protect what's fair," he said, "not what's easy." I nodded, too choked up to answer out loud. 3 weeks later, he was gone. After the funeral, Monica moved in with Evelyn and took over the finances to help Mom transition. I didn't fight it. I was neck deep in grief, trying to keep my job, pay bills, and breathe without crumbling. When I finally looked at Dad's accounts months later, some things didn't line up. Money moved, investments pulled early, names changed on documents. When I brought it up, Evelyn barely looked up from her crossword. "Monica knows what she's doing. Don't make trouble." That sentence stuck with me for years. Don't make trouble. Translation: don't dig, don't question, keep the peace, no matter the cost. But I couldn't unsee it now. I pulled out my phone and reopened the files Alex had sent. Everything my father worked for, his business, his savings, his legacy, had been rewritten. Not just emotionally, legally. And I had the proof. I sat with him a while longer. The wind rustled the leaves, and somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. Same church, same bells from the wedding. But this time the sound felt different, like a warning, not a celebration. I stood slowly, brushing off my jeans, and looked down one last time. "You said protect what's fair, Dad," I said. "So I will." There wasn't vengeance in my voice, just certainty. Driving home, I passed the Willowbrook estate. The tent was still up, but the magic had faded. A few staff were clearing plates, folding chairs, sweeping up flower petals that had been trampled hours ago. The glow was gone, replaced by trash bags and silence. I rolled down the window and took it all in, the leftovers of their perfect night. "Every ending starts with cleanup," I said quietly, and I meant it. That night, after driving past the last flicker of the wedding lights, I didn't sleep. I stayed up sorting truth from memory, pain from facts. By sunrise, my apartment no longer looked like a home. It looked like a war room. Folders lined the kitchen table, color-coded and labeled. Receipts were paper-clipped and stacked. Every email, every contract, every bank transaction was printed, highlighted, dated. I hadn't realized how much I'd kept over the years. At first, I'd saved it all as proof for myself, a way to stay sane when I felt like I was losing my grip. But now it had a new purpose. This wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. "If they built their empire on my back," I said out loud, pushing a folder toward the center, "then it's time they stand on their own." I opened my laptop and started typing. Dates, wire transfers, invoices, scanned checks. I didn't allow my mind to wander, not even once. Not to Monica's laugh, not to Evelyn's clipped tone, not to my father's voice. Just the facts. Mid-morning, my phone buzzed. "Mr. Dawson." "You sure you want to do this, Lara? It's family." I leaned back in my chair, fingers paused over the keys. My answer was quiet, but firm. No, it used to be. By noon, the legal paperwork was filed. Quietly, no public announcement. Just the start of something that would hit them like a wave. Mediation for misuse of personal funds and breach of fiduciary trust. Just a sentence on paper, but to them, it would land like a grenade. I sat back and checked my phone again. Monica had posted a photo from Santorini, her arms around Ryan, blue sky behind them, and some influencer caption underneath. Blessed beyond words. Family is everything. I actually laughed. Family, sure, just not mine. Before I could close the app, a knock at the door startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it to find Alex, windblown and holding a thick manila envelope. "You're gonna want to see this," he said, stepping inside. At the table, he slid the envelope toward me. I opened it. Inside were printed screenshots. Family group chats. Not the main one I had been exiled from, but a hidden thread. One I never knew existed. They called it Vencor, a cruel joke playing on Monica's last name and their little empire. Messages between Evelyn and Monica, some from extended relatives, all mocking, all mean. She's probably sitting in that sad little apartment. Let's hope she doesn't show up and embarrass herself. She's always been the dramatic one. I didn't cry. Not this time. I sat perfectly still, letting the weight of it land. Not just what they said, but the ease with which they said it. Like I was an outsider, like I wasn't their blood. "Good," I whispered. "Let them keep underestimating me." Alex looked unsure. He placed a coffee on the table, but didn't sit down. "If you go through with this," he said gently, "there's no going back." I turned toward the window. The Willowbrook banners from the wedding still fluttered in the distance, cheap vinyl peeling in the wind. Some had already torn loose, swinging wildly. "Exactly," I said. "No going back." By late afternoon, the call came. Evelyn's number lit up the screen. For a split second, I hesitated. Then I hit accept. "You filed something," she said, skipping hello. "What are you thinking?" I didn't bother with pleasantries either. "I'm thinking you should have thought twice before using my name on documents I never signed." She paused. Then her voice dropped. "You'll destroy this family." I didn't flinch. "You already did. I'm just taking out the trash." There was silence. Then the line cut. I stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. Then I looked over at the watch on the table, my father's. Its hands had stopped the day he died. 11:47. I never fixed it. I touched the cracked face lightly and whispered, "Time to move again, Dad." The light outside had begun to fade, but something in me had started to rise. I didn't expect them to take it lying down, but I didn't expect them to take it public either. The next morning, before the coffee finished brewing, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Missed calls, voicemails, a string of texts from Alex. I played the first one, his voice low and urgent. "They're making it public, Laura. Local news. You need to check." I sat down at the kitchen table, laptop open, and there it was, a headline in bold, unforgiving letters. "Estranged daughter sues family over inheritance dispute." Beneath it, photos from the wedding, Monica in white, Evelyn beaming, guests clinking glasses, all smiles, all lies. The article quoted Evelyn directly. "We're heartbroken. Our daughter would do this out of greed." Monica's wedding was a celebration of love, not money. Greed. The word made my skin crawl. I whispered, "Greed? You stole from me." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, not to reply, but to steady myself. I didn't need to say anything, yet. But inside, something shifted. My jaw tightened. My spine straightened. If this was how they wanted to play it, then so be it. By midday, Monica had added her voice to the circus. A curated Instagram post. a soft photo of her lighting a candle in some chapel abroad. The caption read, "Family should forgive. We're praying for peace in hard times." And below that, the comments, some well-meaning, some vicious. "She's just bitter. Jealousy's an ugly thing. Prayers for your strength, Monica." I didn't respond. I scrolled, and then a message notification appeared. A stranger. No name, just a user handle I didn't recognize. I clicked. Inside was a single image, a screenshot of a bank transfer form. The signature line had been altered, my name forged. The handwriting was wrong, the timestamp off. But the worst part? Monica's email address at the top. I closed my eyes. My voice was calm, but colder than ice. "You just made your last mistake." That evening, I drove to Evelyn's house. No call, no warning. I didn't even knock. I just walked up and rang the bell like I still belonged there. Evelyn opened the door. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in calculation. "Lara, this isn't the time." "It never was," I said, stepping past her. The house looked the same. The fake elegance, the polished furniture, and there, on the mantel, that wedding photo again. Cropped. My face sliced out of the family like I was never part of it. "You really can't stand to see me in the picture, can you?" I asked without looking at her. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice cracked just slightly. "You embarrassed us. You never fit in. Monica's the one who tries." "Monica tries to steal," I said, turning to face her. "And you help her." The air grew heavy, thicker than before. Footsteps echoed behind us, heels on hardwood. Monica stepped into view, her expression sharp, her mouth already set in a smirk. "You think paperwork's going to scare us?" she said, crossing her arms. "You'll regret this." I didn't flinch. "Maybe, but at least I'll regret it as myself." I reached into my bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. Official, heavy, impossible to ignore. I placed it gently on the coffee table. "This isn't about money," I added. "It's about memory. And you erased mine." Monica's smirk wavered. Evelyn didn't move, but her hand trembled slightly at her side. Not out of fear, out of realization. Without another word, I turned to leave. Behind me, Evelyn called out, "You'll be alone when this ends." I stopped at the door, rain beginning to tap the porch behind me. "I've been alone since Dad died," I said over my shoulder. "You just never noticed." I walked out into the storm. Windshield wipers swayed as I drove, but the rhythm in my chest beat louder, more steady, more sure. At a red light, I looked into the rearview mirror. My reflection looked different, not harder, not older, just free. "You wanted a war," I said softly. "Now you've got one." But wars aren't fought in courtrooms alone. Sometimes they start in places no one sees coming. A text thread, a dinner table, a look that lasts 1 second too long. But today, mine would begin in an actual room with 4 walls, a long table, and the suffocating silence of everything unsaid. The courthouse wasn't grand or imposing, just a square brick building that smelled faintly of coffee and old paper. But as I sat across from my mother and sister in the mediation room, it felt more like a battleground. Evelyn sat rigid, her purse clutched like armor. Monica stared daggers, lips pressed tight enough to turn white. Neither of them looked at me. I didn't care. The mediator adjusted his glasses, glancing between us. "Ms. Venn, you're claiming that your sister misused a financial investment without your consent. Do you have supporting documentation?" Without a word, I slid the small flash drive across the table. "Everything you need is there. Bank logs, contracts, dates, signatures." Monica let out a soft laugh, laced with venom. "You think a few files are going to undo everything we've built?" I looked her straight in the eye. "They don't need to undo anything. They just need to show the truth." The mediator plugged in the drive, and the wall projection flickered to life. The room fell silent. There it was, the original business loan document, showing the full transfer from my account to Monica's, with a signature acknowledging the debt, clear, legal, time-stamped, real. Evelyn shifted in her seat, her nails digging into the leather armrest. She turned slowly toward Monica. What is this?" she whispered. Monica didn't blink. "It's fake. She must have forged it." Before she could continue, Mr. Dawson, my lawyer, calmly placed another document on the table. "And here," he said, "is the notarized receipt from the bank, 5 years old, same amount, same day." Monica's smirk collapsed. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The mediator scrolled further, highlighted sections, financial reports, emails, each one built on the last. It was all there, the paper trail they thought I'd never find. Monica's voice cracked. "You always wanted to be the victim. You think this makes you some kind of hero?" I didn't even flinch. "If protecting myself makes me the villain in your story, I can live with that." The mediator straightened up, his tone now firm. "Based on the evidence presented, we'll be issuing a binding resolution. Full repayment of the funds to Ms. Venn, including interest, a public acknowledgement of the misuse, and a formal written apology." Evelyn gasped. "You'll ruin us, Laura." I looked at her, really looked, not with anger, just the kind of clarity that comes when the fog finally lifts. "You ruined yourselves. I just stopped cleaning up after you." We stood, chairs scraped back. No one said a word. The door creaked open. I walked out first. Monica's heels clicked after me, fast and loud, until she shouted down the hallway, "You think this fixes everything? You'll still be alone." I stopped at the entrance, hand on the doorframe, rain tapping against the windows beyond. "Better alone," I said without turning, "than surrounded by liars." Outside, flashbulbs went off. Local reporters had caught wind of the case. The perfect Venn family image shattered in a handful of flashes. I kept walking. By the time I got home, dusk had settled like dust. Quiet, still. But inside me, something had shifted. Not rage, not triumph, just peace. Like breathing for the first time in years. I walked into my bedroom, pulled open the old drawer, and took out the frame. The photo I'd kept hidden. The original one. All of us, Dad, me, Evelyn, Monica, before the rot set in, before silence became my survival. I gently removed the cropped wedding photo from its frame, placed the original one in, and set it on the shelf. Not to honor them, but to reclaim me. "Back where I belong," I whispered. The knock at the door was soft. I didn't jump. Alex stood there, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You okay?" I nodded, took one from his hand, let the warmth settle in my palms. For the first time in a long while. "Yeah." We stood together in the silence. No buzzing phones, no reporters, no threats. Just the hum of a quiet night, and the knowledge that sometimes the fight isn't about winning. It's about refusing to lose yourself. But the truth never stays buried. And by dawn, there was a knock I didn't expect. The knock came just as the sun began to rise. Soft, deliberate, like whoever stood on the other side wasn't sure if I'd answer. The world outside my window was still soaked in that cold, gray-blue light that makes everything feel distant, like waking from a dream you don't remember but can't shake. I slipped out of bed, tugged the cardigan from the chair by the door, and cracked it open. 2 uniformed officers stood on the porch. One young, the other older, more worn around the eyes. "Ms. Venn?" the elder asked. I nodded. "We're here about your sister, Monica Venn. There was an incident last night." My hand gripped the edge of the door. "Is she—" "She's alive," the younger officer said quickly. "Minor injuries, but she's been asking for you." I didn't move. Not at first. Just stood there, heart thudding like it had been holding back for weeks, and finally let go. "We can escort you to the hospital," the older one offered. A part of me wanted to say no. Another part had already reached for my keys. 20 minutes later, I was walking sterile white hallways, the scent of disinfectant thick in the air. I hadn't stepped foot in this hospital since my father died. Everything smelled the same buzz in the lights overhead, the same cold metal rails on the walls, the same silence when the elevator doors closed. Room 412. Monica looked smaller in that bed, her skin pale against the stiff sheets. Her mascara had run. Her left arm was bandaged. She turned when I walked in. "I didn't know who else to call," she said softly. I said nothing. She swallowed. "After the hearing, the investors pulled out. Someone leaked the files online. Everything collapsed. I lost it all." I stood at the foot of her bed, watching her eyes dart between mine and the floor. "Was it you?" she asked. I let out a slow breath. "No, you did that when you tried to erase me." Her lip trembled. For the first time in years, Monica looked human, vulnerable, not curated, not manicured, just raw. I thought it would blow over, that people would side with us. I didn't answer. She turned her face toward the wall. "I don't even know who I am anymore." A silence stretched between us, one not filled with anger, but something heavier, sadder. "I know what that feels like," I said quietly. "To be invisible, to be pushed aside so often you start believing you deserve it." She turned back to face me, tears streaming now. "I'm sorry." That was the first time I'd heard those words from her, ever. The door swung open suddenly. Evelyn rushed in, breathless, holding her purse like it was a shield. "Lara, haven't you done enough?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. "You keep saying I destroyed this family," I said. "But maybe it was never a family to begin with, just a photo you two worked hard to make look perfect." Evelyn stared at me, as if seeing someone new, reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a small flash drive, and placed it gently on Monica's bedside table. "That's everything you need to rebuild the business," I said. "Clean, legal, no strings." Monica blinked. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because revenge doesn't set you free. It just keeps you locked in the same room with the people who hurt you." I turned toward the door. I didn't expect gratitude. I didn't need it. Alex waited just outside, holding 2 paper cups. "I guessed right," he said, handing me the coffee. I took a sip. Still hot, strong. "You okay?" he asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I'm getting there." That afternoon, I drove alone to the courthouse plaza. The fountain in the center still bubbled quietly, just as it had the day I walked out of the mediation room with the settlement papers in hand. I reached into my bag, pulled out my father's old watch. The face still frozen at 11:47, the moment he'd died. I stepped closer to the fountain, letting the cool breeze wash over my skin. Then, without ceremony, I let the watch drop into the water. Ripples spread, wide and slow. "Time doesn't fix everything," I whispered, "but it teaches you what not to carry anymore." The sun broke through the clouds just then. No drama, no trumpet, just light. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Monica. A thank you. I stared at the screen. No follow-up, no emoji. Just those 2 words. Maybe she meant them, maybe she didn't. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I needed to know. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, wind catching in my hair as I walked down the courthouse steps. "Perfect," I whispered again. Not in bitterness, not in pain, but in peace. But even peace has a shadow, and mine came knocking one last time. Weeks had passed since Monica's call from the hospital. Since that silent car ride home, the awkward coffee with Alex, the moment I stood by the courthouse fountain, and let the weight of my past float away with folded letters. Things had grown still, too still. The sun had started rising earlier again. The days stretched long, and my apartment smelled of basil and rosemary. I watered my plants, paid bills on time, and even managed a few hours a week volunteering at the community center. On the outside, everything looked ordinary, peaceful. But inside, something kept buzzing. That low hum of unfinished business, like a faint ringtone from a room you can't find. Then one morning, while sorting through old mail and receipts at the kitchen table, my voicemail icon blinked. A message. No caller ID. I pressed play. You thought this was over, but some things don't get buried. I didn't move. The voice wasn't one I recognized, but the tone, cold, flat, almost amused, it scratched something old in my bones. I deleted the message, but I didn't forget it. That afternoon, Mr. Dawson texted me to let me know a few personal documents had been discovered during a property audit, items possibly belonging to me. They were found in a storage unit attached to the old family house. I hadn't been there since it sold. My gut twisted, but I agreed to go. Driving up the dirt path, past the overgrown hedges and the familiar white mailbox, was like stepping back into a childhood I never fully owned. The windows were empty now, stripped of life and curtains. But the house still stood tall, like a lie that refused to crumble. The door was unlocked. I walked in slowly, every creak of the floorboard whispering old arguments. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemon polish. My bedroom was mostly bare, but tucked inside the top drawer of my old desk was a yellowed envelope. My name written in my father's unmistakable handwriting. Inside, a short note. If you're reading this, I'm gone. I left something for you in the shed, something that proves what they took wasn't yours to lose. My hands trembled. Outside, the backyard had gone wild. Weeds wrapped around the rusted fence like fingers. The shed, still standing behind the dogwood tree, looked like it hadn't been opened in a decade. I forced the lock open with a firm twist and some sweat. Inside, buried beneath a tarp and a broken lawn chair, was a small metal box. I lifted the lid. Inside was a deed, 15 years old, my name clearly listed as part owner of the family property. No amendments, no transfers. Dad had known, and he'd tried to make it right. I whispered, "You never stopped seeing me, did you?" Behind me, tires crunched on gravel. I turned. Evelyn stepped out of her car. Her coat hung off her frame. Her face looked carved by sleepless nights. "You weren't supposed to find that," she said softly. "But I did." She walked closer, her voice brittle. "I changed the documents years ago. I thought it was fair. Monica needed help. You were fine." "No," I said. I was silent. "That's not the same as fine." Her jaw clenched. I was trying to save what was left of this family. "You weren't saving anything," I said. "You were choosing her, again." She looked at me, the storm clouds gathering above, casting long shadows on her face. "You hate me." I shook my head. "No, I just finally see you." Then her hand went to her chest, a staggered step backward. Her knees buckled. "Mom!" I caught her as she fell, yelling into my phone for help. The rain broke loose above us as the sirens grew closer. At the hospital, I sat beside her, my hand gripping hers. All the things I'd wanted to say, all the years of silence and small wounds, they felt far away now. In the end, none of it mattered. Father Nolan came in quietly, offering comfort and prayers. He'd been there at Monica's wedding. Now he was here again for a different kind of vow. Evelyn opened her eyes briefly. "I was wrong, Lara. I was wrong." Tears slipped down my cheeks, not for sorrow, for release. She passed peacefully 3 days later. At the funeral, I stood off to the side, away from the crowd. Monica approached quietly, no makeup, no curled hair, just Monica. "She left me something too," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time there was no fire between us. Only tired truth. "Maybe," I said. "She finally saw both of us." We stood together, umbrellas between us and the drizzle, watching the casket lower. The rain tapped the nylon softly, like a slow applause from people we couldn't see anymore. Weeks passed. One late afternoon, I returned to the fountain outside the courthouse. In my hand were 2 letters, one from me, one from Monica. I dropped them both into the water. For everything we couldn't say, the fountain rippled once, then stilled. As I turned to leave, a little girl walked by holding her mother's hand. She carried a tiny plastic heart, the kind that glows when squeezed. It pulsed red in her palm. She giggled. I smiled. A memory flickered, that heart emoji Monica used when she called me a loser in front of the whole family. "Goodbye, loser," I murmured quietly, then added, "Goodbye, too." Not from anger, but forgiveness. The next morning, I packed a small bag, filled the tank, and rolled the windows down. The air was warm, clean. Alex called as I pulled onto the highway. "Where you headed?" I glanced at the open road ahead. "Anywhere that's mine." And I drove, the wind in my hair, the past behind me. Some endings don't come with revenge. They come with peace. And sometimes that's louder.